Mitch, are we on?
All on you, Pat. Let's go.
Oh, okay. All right. I just asked my studio if we're on. We are on. And welcome, everybody, to a very special Friday afternoon. It's not every Friday you get to be with these incredible gentlemen that I'm going to introduce to you in a minute. But let me just say something before we get into today's topics of discussion. The lunatics are running the asylum. And can you believe this? Can you believe this? Taxing farts. I mean, really, this globalist agenda. This globalist agenda is meant to hurt people. It's not about climate. I mean, whoever thought of the idea, give government money to fix up climate and weather, seriously. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but what I want to address in this monologue is we must remember, and as I mentioned and I've been saying for the last 2 years, this is about control. Goliaths don't change. These are evil, demonic entities manifesting themselves in our world today. And, you know, being a person of faith, and again, I know we've got a cross-section of people on here, the ancients wrote 2,000 years ago that even now there are many antichrists among you. Am I saying that these political leaders are antichrists? No, they're not. They're not the antichrist, but I can assure you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, they carry that spirit, which is basically anti anything that is godly. Now, we must never forget what's happened to our country. Not what happened, what's happened to our country. Sadly, people have fallen asleep. There are two polarizing types of thinking in our world today. There is those that are awake, you guys here watching, and those that are still asleep, wondering what the heck is going on. Someone said to my wife just the other day, a key leader in our community, what's woke? They don't even know what woke is. How can you be a leader and not know what woke is? To which I said to my wife, you should have said to them, it's what you actually are. You see, people have become conditioned. And what government has learned is that people can be controlled through fear. Now, this Goliath has no boundaries, no morals, and no respect. It is the spirit of the age. It's World Economic Forum motivated, and it's meant to hurt people. Dictator Dan, which I'm going to talk about later, Dictator Dan has just appointed heat officers. What in the world is that? A heat officer. What in the world is that? Let me just remind my viewers and all of you that are listening, and I'm so very grateful that we've got Senator Antic here, who really did a great job in purging the Liberal Party in South Australia of that green leftist socialist agenda. Let me just remind everyone here, and I want to remind our conservative people that when Tony Abbott came against that ridiculous carbon tax, remember? Under my government, there'll be no carbon tax. Remember that? Remember that? Remember what Julia said? Well, when he fought against that, he won an election by 25 seats. When our former Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, got into bed with this woke culture, guess what? Lost the election. Because people want to be led in a way that is beneficial to them, not hurting them. These agendas are only there to hurt people. One of the things that I love about Senator Alexander, who is on here today, he really made a stand and did an incredible job to cleanse that woke agenda in South Australia. And, of course, we've got our great friend Joel Jammal here, who's a great freedom fighter. And we're going to be talking about what we can do to demobilize Dictator Dan. And, of course, my great friend, a great sage, I call him, James McPherson. But how are you, gentlemen? Good to see you on here, James. I know you're here somewhere. I missed that, James. Say that again.
I said, thanks for having me on, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today. You've got great guests in Joel and Alex, so it should be good.
Oh, fantastic. And Senator Alexander, great to have you on the program today as well.
Oh, thanks, Pat. It's good to be here. And yeah, I can say the same. It's a great big love it, isn't it? What great company we're in.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and you won't find three more better looking fellas. Joel Jammal, how are you, my good friend, the freedom fighter,
No,
Joel Jammal
it's a
himself?
pleasure. No, look, it's a
Joel,
pleasure, Pat. I'm among giants, legends.
Joel, I want to throw this to you. What in the world is wrong with the people of Victoria? I mean, how can they re-elect this demonic, and I got no problem calling that despot, now introduces another control mechanism with heat officers to fight climate change. Joel, what can we do about that? And why is he still in power?
Yeah, well, look, the reason why we're in a situation we are with the Victorians is a lot of people haven't really gotten involved in politics in the past. And so what we're seeing is after the COVID mania we've seen the last 2.5 years, is people realized, oh my gosh, government actually has a lot of power over our lives. I didn't realize that. So, the problem with Australians is they're very apathetic when it comes to politics. So they're just realizing, one, all the COVID policy could happen. They could lock you down in your houses. But two, it seems like we're shifting over to the climate change debate now, where they do want to do some similar things. I mean, you sort of saw these articles throughout 2020, 2021, where they'd say, oh, look how much emissions have dropped due to the lockdowns. Aren't they great? Isn't this really good? The environment's flourishing. I mean, what are these people really planning? I don't know. But look, it's food for thought.
Senator, you've had a lot to say about this climate change nonsense. What's your angle on this, and how bad is it going to hurt our country?
Oh, look, Pat, I think we're starting to see what the real implications are going to be now. I was just talking to someone about it today, and it's always been a bit of a theoretical concept, and those of us that follow politics, I guess, and are involved in politics have been seeing it for what it is, really, which is control, as you say. I mean, it's really nothing about environmentalism and everything about, kind of transfer of wealth. And we're seeing that now. But I think now that we're seeing these movements that have come through places like the Netherlands and through Sri Lanka and other parts of the world where the attack is starting to really hurt farmers and therefore food supplies, I think we're starting to see the pointy end of this, this push. And really, I've said this many times before, this is just another angle in weaponising the emergency. We've seen this used with COVID. This is an emergency. We don't have time to do things the way we used to do them. Don't worry about all your old ways of governing and the liberty and all that sort of stuff. Just get on with doing it the way we say it. Well, we're seeing a little bit of that out of climate as well. And now we're being told that that the methane that comes from cows is ruining the planet, and we've got to have a sort of a pushback on methane. I mean, you think you've reached peak crazy with this, and you get something like this. There will be no end to this until people start waking up and understanding what's happening. And that's the job of politics. And there are many good politicians that speak out against this. Myself, Senator Gerard Rennick, Senator Matt Canavan, and others. But we need politicians to muscle up. We need them to start calling this out and start understanding that what we must be doing at all occasions is what's right for Australia, not what's right for some crony capitalist in Davos, who presumably is making money out of this somewhere along the line. This is madness. It's got to stop. And I don't want people to wake up when all of a sudden there's no food on the table and farmers are out of business. The stuff that's coming out of the Netherlands at the moment is as alarming as anything I've seen, that's not war related, perhaps, on a global scale for a long period of time. So, people need to wake up quickly, and that's our job. Our job is to keep raising our voice.
Now, James, you wrote a brilliant article today on Greta Thunberg, good Lord, the patron saint of climate change, the little Madonna. James, tell us about that. What Greta's gone? Tell us about that, if you don't mind.
Well, Greta was interviewed just the other day, and the Goblin of Doom said that Germany made a mistake by closing down their nuclear reactors. Now, this is amazing because it was only 100 days ago she described nuclear energy as a false solution and derided it. Now she's all in favour of it. And, life comes at you quick, Pat. All of a sudden, Germany, faced with a bleak winter, unable to heat homes because they've got no electricity, have to face life as it is rather than life as they wish it or imagine it to be. And hopefully that sense of reality will start to take hold here in Australia as well. Just quickly, before you move on, Pat, you mentioned the Melbourne City Council employing heat chiefs. You know, the funny thing about that story is that they said we need chief heat, I guess, fight heat. And this was the big problem. They said that by 2050, Melbourne will experience 16 days a year where the temperature is more than 35 degrees. Well, I thought to myself, okay, 16 days where the temperature is over 35 degrees. I wonder what it is these days. And do you know, at the moment, it's an average of 11 days a year. So what they're worried about is that in 28 years from now, Melbourne will experience, here it is, 5 more days of 35 plus temperatures than it currently does. So if you're 50 this year, by the time you're 78, there's going to be 5 really hot days a year that are a little bit hotter than they used to be. And that is cause for alarm and emergency. This stuff is ridiculous. And I think as Joel or Alex said earlier, most of us are apathetic. We don't pay too much attention. The media sensationalise everything. It sounds drastic. It's really a storm in a teacup.
Absolutely. Now, Joel, you know, you and I were speaking just the other day about Dan Andrews, and I want you guys to help, you know, throw your thoughts on this. We need to raise up a movement in Victoria. How do we demobilise Dan? That's the first thing. Second thing I want to ask you, there's rumours out that Dan could lose his seat. What's your take on that?
Yeah, look, if Dan, there's 2 ways you can win the Victorian election. It's looking unlikely that Dan will lose his, or the Labor Party will lose their majority in the lower house. But there is a very big campaign to target Dan's specific seat of Mulgrove. I do believe I'm pronouncing that right. Ian Cook, who is someone who has been on the receiving end of some of Dan Andrews' scorn, is running as an independent. It's a very Teal-esque sort of strategy. He's running as an independent. He doesn't want to tether himself to the Liberal Party. And it's looking like the Liberal Party, this independent, Ian Cook, and a number of the other freedom parties are all partnering up to basically preference each other and get Dan Andrews out. Now, look, if they manage to get him out, that's great. They cut off the head of the snake. But the problem is you'll just get another nameless, faceless Labor person to replace him. And so that's sort of the first strategy people are trying to employ. The other one is the Liberal Party. They're trying to essentially get the majority of the numbers in the lower house and the upper house in order to get legislation passed. I don't think that's going to happen. You know, I'm not going to sell people hopium. I think the Labor Party will come in with the majority, at least in the lower house. And then there's a third school of thought, which is we've got to target the upper house. Now, that's another complicated issue because the way things are looking for the upper house, there's this guy called the Preference Whisperer who runs around making deals between the different parties and selling preferences and seats between the parties. And it's looking like it's going to be a left-leaning upper house. So I don't know what to tell people except that we need to do more in Victoria. And what does that look like? Because, you know, we've all got to do something. Well, all the projects that Turning Point dedicate themselves to, Turning Point Australia, which is the organisation I lead, is to actually educate people and empower them so that they can activate in their community and fix that apathetic problem. The first thing we can do is basically finding your favourite party that you find really represent your values. And if you're not sure which party best represents your values, we've got graphics coming out which show you where they come up on policy, and pick your favourite party. What we want you to do is sign up to them, volunteer your help, and hand out how to vote cards in the 3 weeks before election day. Start having conversations in your community about who you want to see in Parliament and what you want to see from your representatives. And if you're not sure how to preference your how to vote card, that's another thing we're coming out with, where we're doing how to vote cards for the state election of Victoria, where we did this in the federal election and it was hugely successful. We ended up having 250,000 downloads of our how to vote cards, and it helped shift millions of dollars away from the major parties towards more, let's say, freedom parties, conservative parties, politicians that actually have values that they stick to when they vote. Senators like Senator Antic are people that ended up getting elected in the federal election. We saw Ralph Babbitt get up. We saw Pauline Hanson get up. And we saw a lot of lower house MPs retain their seats in the coalition because they were conviction politicians. So it's all about spreading more information around. It's all about giving people the facts, because I trust people to make the right decision if they have all the facts and all the tools. So more to come on that soon, Pat. I've got a couple of new projects which I think will get me banned very soon. But there are things people can do to turn the tide.
That's new for you, Joel, getting yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
So let me ask James and Senator Alex, what does, in the scary scenario that this despot gets elected again, what can Victorians and Australia look forward to with a few more years of this evil man in power? Senator James?
Oh, well, Pat, I mean, I think it's hard to know. I mean, some of the stuff we've seen in the last 2.5 years coming out of Victoria has been genuinely, as we've just heard, genuinely world-changing in a sense. And you do worry that some of the stuff that we're seeing in Victoria is kind of leading the way for other countries as well. We're almost showing the way to do it. I know that that's certainly been the case with Jacinda Ardern and her government. I mean, she was the first one, for example, to tack on this methane business. So, you do wonder. You wonder whether or not it's tracking further and wider just by showing other, jurisdictions how to do it. What can people do? All they can do is go to the ballot box. I mean, I think that's the first step, and the second step is getting involved in politics. We've been doing a bit of that here in South Australia, and providing an opposition that kind of speaks against these issues is so important as well. I don't know. I mean, I worry about a whole heap of things. We're seeing some changes to the changes that are going to come through many jurisdictions about the manner in which the medical profession relates to its clients and its patients. That's going to become standardised. It's a real worry. This sort of national law in medical registration and that's sort of the stuff that I really am worried about catching on all across the country. And I can't imagine Victoria will be out of that. But we're just seeing some really nasty stuff that's non-COVID related. I mean, look at the conversion therapy laws in Victoria.
Absolutely.
Parents, counsellors, all being criminalised for talking to their kids about, their own gender, for goodness sake. I mean, I don't know where this ends. I don't know what other tricks they've got up their sleeve, but people have to understand that when they go to the ballot box, and they need to vote this guy out.
James, your take. Look down your crystal ball, James. What do you see?
Look, listening to Joel, it's quite depressing because I just cannot believe that Victorians, whatever their political stripe, would vote Dan Andrews and Labor back in again, no matter how bad the Liberal Party in Victoria might be. And I think they're pretty bad, but nothing is as bad as Daniel Andrews. If you're a Christian, I mean, the Liberals might be hopeless, but at least they don't hate you. Daniel Andrews and his Labor government are anti-Christian. And I think in answer to your question, what happens if he gets back in? Well, I think the simple answer is that Daniel Andrews is even more embodied. He acts like he can get away with anything. If on the back of that he wins re-election in spite of everything, then surely he must feel bulletproof, and you can only imagine what he to get away with.
Gents, can I just qualify what I've said? In the election, it's not specifically that people are voting for Dan Andrews in. It's mainly that people are switching off. Now, let's look at the federal election. We saw the Labor Party get like their lowest primary vote in 100 years, yet they have a majority in their own right in the lower house. Now, in the state of Victoria, since the start of the pandemic, we've seen over 200,000 people leave the state, most likely Conservatives, to just say, I'm out of here. They went to Queensland, they went to New South Wales, some even went overseas. And to make matters worse, look, we've got Victoria, there's a lot of people switching off. Let's take New South Wales for an example. There are 5.6 million eligible voters. The amount of people that actually end up voting and casting a ballot that counts is 4.7 million. So almost 900,000 people are not casting votes in New South Wales, let alone Victoria. So the real problem is you've got about 16% of people not even casting a ballot in New South Wales. How bad is it in Victoria where they just switched off and they just think that the political system is gone? I mean, how many ICACs has this guy dodged? But you can understand if people are getting switched off. So it's not that they're winning the vote. It's that people aren't rocking up. And so I'm really hoping that whatever it is, hatred, trying to take your country back, patriotism, whatever it is. I hope it motivates people, and I hope I'm dead wrong about this election. I really do. But one thing I can guarantee people is that I'm doing, just because I think this is what's going to happen, it's actually motivating me even more to defy the odds. And that's why I'm coming out with 2 old projects that we used on the federal election, which are really effective, and 2 brand new projects, which I'm announcing very soon, to weaponize Victorians into electoral, animals. So we'll see what happens.
It's a scary thought, because the man his hatred for Christianity is unbelievable. He's apparently rewritten the tenets of faith for the Catholic Church as well. But James, if I could just ask you, can you talk to us about Greta? What Greta has gone nuclear, apparently. Can we just get back on that? Because Greta Thunberg, the little patron saint who screams and cries and she's lost her future, apparently has just decided that, nuclear is the way to go. Well, what do you think has caused that?
Well, like I said earlier, Pat, I think it's just a brush with reality. Renewables are not sufficient to power cities, let alone nations. They can contribute a little bit, but you have to have a primary baseload source. And with gas cut off from Russia and having closed down their nuclear power stations, Germany, like much of Europe, is in serious trouble approaching winter. There's stories in the paper about Germany going into the woods and cutting wood to burn to keep themselves warm. It's a disaster.
Sad.
And so I think it's just a brush with reality. But you know what? If disaster strikes, some of these people ought to be very worried, because eventually the mob will come for them, because ordinary people may well be disengaged, but when you start freezing, and 14 times more people die due to cold than due to heat wave every year. When people start being unable to heat their homes, when elderly people start dying, people like Greta and others who have led us down this garden path of renewables, they'll have something to answer for, and people will not be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Senator, I want to move to a different subject today, because I get a lot of people asking me about this voice in Parliament, the voice. It is so confusing. It is so nebulous. What is it? Do we need it? Which I don't think we do. Is it again, and I hate to use the word, the white politician trying to make good? What is this? What is this nonsense?
A lot of good questions, Pat. Only some of them I can answer, because we don't really know what it's going to be yet. It seems to be a thought bubble that's come out of Albo and his team's brains a little while ago that's kind of developed, and no one really can tell us exactly what it looks like. But in essence, it's basically what looks to be some sort of advisory body that's made up of Aboriginal people, and it will advise government on, and that's one theory as to what it might look like. And effectively what it will do, of course, is it will provide a sort of a race-based chamber of parliament, effectively, where you're getting a sort of a pipeline to government based on your race, not based on what you do as a job or, your competence or whatever. Now, we don't know the details yet. We don't know if there's going to be a referendum. There's argument about whether there should be or there shouldn't be. I think Australians are already pretty cynical about this. I certainly am. I've got a very, and I've said it, for 6 months. Actually, I've said it longer than that, because there was talk about it in the South Australian Parliament under the last government here, and I said very clearly I just don't support anything of the kind. I think this is really dangerous ground.
It seems to me like it's divisive. It doesn't bring the nation together. It's like all this welcome to country and all that. None of it unite. It seems like we've got a nation within a nation within a nation within a state. It's crazy.
And look, Pat, that's what the left want. Ultimately, the Marxist left want that. It's all about everyone having their own identity group and being separate and divided, and therefore weak. We're strongest when we're all together. We're all Australians under the one flag, the flag of this nation. We all know, everyone on this call knows that, and most of your listeners and viewers would know that as well. We've just got to be strong about it. We've just got to say no. I think the Australian people are totally against this. It'll be sold in a way that's very romantic and heartfelt, and it won't tell the true story, just like the marriage debate didn't tell the true story. The pro yes campaign never told the true story. And we're now starting to see the trickle down effect of what's come after that, as many of us said at the time. But in the case of the voice, where does it end? I mean, all of a sudden we've got different flags. We've now got 3 flags. Actually, there's 2 on either side, or 3 on either side. 6 flags in the Senate chamber now, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags. Where does it end? I mean, people from Vietnam have made a great contribution to this country. People from Italy have made a great contribution to this country. There are so many. Where do we stop being individual groups, identity groups, and start being Australians? And that's what The Voice will try and do. You want to listen to Jacinta Price talk about this. Her view is, whatever it looks like, it's going to create a bureaucratic class that are going to just soak up more money, slow things down, make things more difficult. And it would be, and the con argument to this is, or the converse argument to this is, well, it's just an advisory body, probably. So what's the difference? Well, it'll be a very, very, very strong government that stood up and went against an advisory body that had that kind of legislative power. We need to reject this. We need to reject it regardless. I don't want to see what the model looks like. I mean, I've already made my decision about this. I don't need to know any more about it. I won't be voting for it.
James, as a journalist, what's your take on this thing?
Look, I love The Voice, aside from 3 things. There's only 3 problems I've got with it. Otherwise, I love it. If it wasn't for the fact that it's racist, unnecessary and dangerous, I think it'd be brilliant. But unfortunately, it's racist. They're dividing the country by race. Inserting race into the Constitution is one of the silliest things that any government in this country has ever proposed. I can't believe they would suggest it. Secondly, it's unnecessary. Indigenous people already have a voice to Parliament. It's called their local MP. If you want to influence parliamentary decisions, you do so at the ballot box, and in between elections, you can contact your local member anytime you want. Yes, it's true that Indigenous people have problems. Indigenous communities suffer many disadvantages, but the voice to Parliament doesn't change anything. If Anthony Albanese wants to get Indigenous input into government decisions, he can do that this afternoon. He can call any number of Indigenous leaders all around the country. He can go to an Indigenous community and speak to them face to face if he wants. You don't need to change the Constitution to be able to talk to Indigenous people. How condescending is that? And finally, as Alec said, it's dangerous. It would be a brave Prime Minister. In fact, you can imagine if the Indigenous voice says the government ought to do this and the Prime Minister says, no, we are not going to do that, what is he going to be called? He's going to be called a racist. We're already being told if we don't vote for the voice, we're racist. Well, if that's how it's being sold before it's become legislated, imagine what it would be like if you disagreed with it after it's law. Not only that, but there's no to end. It's under the guise of solving Indigenous disadvantage. Well, do we expect Indigenous disadvantage to last forever? Because once this is in the Constitution, it can't be removed except by another referendum. So in answer to your question, Pat, I think the voice is brilliant, aside from the fact it's racist, unnecessary, and very, very dangerous.
Joel, Jammal, what's your take on this thing? I mean, you and I both ethnic people. I want to know why I don't get a voice in there as an Italian. And I mean, where's my voice? You know, I mean, give me a break. Yeah. I mean, the only voice I like is the one where they bang the chairs and they spin around. Joe, why don't we get a look? And where's our voice? Where's the Italians and the Lebanese and the Middle Easterners, brother? Where's our voice?
Yeah, look, I think the guy said it, Pat. I think that it's just racist on all levels. Look, bring it on. Bring it on. You want to take it to the voice? You want to waste your time and not get anything productive done? You want to do a debate on the voice and lose that vote? Bring it on. Let's go. You know, you'll have all the ethnics in southwestern Sydney against it. In Western Sydney, all the Labor areas, they'll be all against it. You know, you're full of it. You're absolutely full of it. You mean to tell me that another organisation, you've got like dozens of them, these Aboriginal organisations, these race hustlers that get all this money and do nothing over decades. You think this will be the thing that makes a difference? No. People see this through this crap. Aussies see it through this crap. Aboriginal communities, they see through this crap. Bring it on. You want to waste some time? Let's do it.
Joel, where can we get hold of you? Because we need to mobilise to demobilise Dictator Dan. And everyone, have a listen to where you can get some material, get educated, get your friends. Listen, there is a war on here, and especially if you're a person of faith, I'm telling you, he's coming for you. This is what this guy's got. I mean, he wants to redefine his own Catholic faith. So, but Joel, where can people get information from you?
Yeah, sure. Look, social media is probably the best way to go about it. We're pretty good at avoiding the algorithms, as Alex Antic will testify. But look, follow Turning Point Australia anywhere online. We have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or follow Joel Jammal, as written on the screen in this interview, anywhere on the same platforms as well. But keep an eye out. We don't tell people to do things often, but when we do, it matters and the punch lands. And that's what happened in the federal election. We targeted lefty Liberal seats like the ones that voted against the Religious Freedom Bill. And on a state level, we're going to be doing the same thing, whether it's New South Wales in March next year or whether it's November with Dan Andrews. So stay in tune as we get closer to November 26th for you Victorians. We'll let you guys know what we're planning and perhaps ways that you can help your community.
Thanks, Joel.
And the same goes for March next year for New South Wales. So thanks, Pat.
Awesome. Now, Senator, I want to ask you a question. Your newsletter is brilliant. And what I love about you're a man of reason. You really are. And what I love, you're fighting for conservative values. And, I admire you so much. And I want to ask both you and James this. How much of what's going on is driven by Mr. Schwab and the World Economic Forum? Because to me, it's like they're all singing from the same hymn book here. How much of this is driven? And I want to commend you for bringing the fact that, bringing to light that any of our politicians that are involved in these organisations should reveal it to the Australian public. Can you give us a little bit of guidance on that or some insight into that?
Yeah, I can, Pat. Well, look, you're right. I mean, clearly the language that's coming out of the World Economic Forum is pretty worrying. They talk in, almost neo-communist, neo-Marxist terms. This thing about stakeholder capitalism, which really is just we've got to get corporates to be more socially conscious, and it's basically socialism wrapped up in a kind of nice, neat Davos corporate bow. Now, what does it actually mean out there in the real world? Well, I think there are rich people out there, and there have been for centuries, who want more control, more power. And the World Economic Forum, to me, really is their mouthpiece. It's the body that's trying to look for new leaders, future leaders, and get them involved and get them trained, get them in the club, if you like. It's probably as simple as that. They brag about it. They say we've got people all over the world inside the cabinet. We've pierced the cabinet, says Klaus Schwab. So, look, I think it is a worry. I don't think it's the only one, by the way. I think there are many NGOs out there that are starting to wield some influence. Now, in some cases, that's a good thing. In some cases, it's a very bad thing. In some cases, it's none of the above. But I think the thing that's important is that the Australian people know which of their elected leaders are involved with those parties. And, it may be past, it may be future, or whatever it may be. So I moved a motion in the Senate seeking for that to be added to the register of interests, or in actual fact, simply for it to be put to the committee and it was voted down by Labor and the Greens. They didn't, the parties of transparency. The very day before, I think Katie Gallagher had talked about transparency and whatever, and then the following day they didn't want to know about having to disclose these interests.
Yeah.
Now, that's just general hypocrisy. It's no more. But the point is, Australians are told huge amounts of information about their elected officials, whether they own shares in companies, partnerships, and so on. Why shouldn't they know this? It's currently before the Procedures Committee, I think, or one of the committees in the Senate. That's being discussed again. So I'm trying to find another way around, because I think this is absolutely critical. I think people need to know as much about their politicians and who they're liaising with as possible. And I think this is as important as anything.
Senator, where can we find you? I want to encourage everyone to get his newsletter, get on his database, because the Senator just does an amazing job. And you write brilliantly, I've got to say. Between you and James and Joel, I could just camp in your heads and plagiarise everything, and I'd sound like I'm brilliant.
You're very welcome to. I just, if it works. Look, I can probably 2 or 3 places. My website's www.alexantic.com.au. And the other one, of course, is Facebook still. I'm on Getter as well, GETTR, which is another alternative platform. But Senator Antic on Facebook is another one. And look, people can find the link there to the sign-up clause, put in some details, and we'll keep communicating with you until such time as I'm completely, shadow banned or deplatformed or whatever else it is. I've just had a couple of YouTube have just pulled down a couple of my interviews on War Room with Steve Bannon for no particularly good reason. So who knows, Pat? We might all be next. The other thing, can I just say quickly, is we have in South Australia a growing movement of Conservatives getting back into politics. The Liberal Party, we're bringing Liberals back to the Liberal Party here in SA. It's starting to bear fruit. We're seeing great people getting involved and coming through. If people want to know, if the South Australians want to know about that, send me an email, alex@believeinblue.com.au, and I can help you get involved, invite you to special events, and start selecting the people that share your values for elections. It's so important.
Brilliant. And before I bring James on for a couple of final words, let me just make some exciting announcements to everybody. Listen to me very carefully. You got to listen to this one. Scoop, super scoop. Put this in your diary. October 26th, I have Gerald Celente. Now, you wonder, who is Gerald Celente? Well, he's worked for President Reagan. Gerald Celente is a trendsetter. Let me give you a few of his predictions. If you ignore what Gerald says, it may hurt you. And here's why. Gerald Celente accurately predicted all the major financial events of the last 40 years. He's actually predicted all of them. He predicted the 1987 stock market crash well before anybody else. He warned people about the 1997 Asian currency crisis. He foresaw the dot-com bust of 2000, plus the GFC in 2007. His market analysis is so accurate and so powerful. And let me tell you, this guy is an insider. He's an insider. I'm telling you that. And we're hosting a special day. Why am I giving you this much notice? Because our Zoom capacity is only up to 1,000 people. Now, I'm going to tell you, Gerald will be going to his database to promote this exclusive global event. Now, if you want to make sure you get your spot on that Zoom with Gerald Celente, there is a link that my team will put up here. And also I'm going to ask the studio to put up there. I think it's www.mesiti.com/survive. And they will put that up for you guys. So that'll be there. And if you want to learn to survive and thrive, you've got to get to the list. I'm telling you, this guy is fired up. He makes me look like a Presbyterian. He's so fired up. And also, our final rallies for the year. We're coming to the Gold Coast. The Gold Coast on the 13th to the 16th of November. Gold Coast. Go to mesitilive.com. I think there should be a link there in the chat, and also the guys in the studio will probably post that up. And we're going to be in Hervey Bay from the 20th to the 22nd. Let me say mesitilive.com/survive, okay? mesiti.com/survive for Gerald Celente, and mesitilive.com for the rallies at Hervey Bay and the Gold Coast. Great news, Hervey Bay and Gold Coast, we are going to be having the awesome Steve Penny, great prophetic voice, Dave Gilpin, and I think James is joining us for one of those rallies as well. And so, guys, we need your support. We've put these on especially. I'll be speaking about what's happening today and looking at that through what's happening through a biblical perspective. And I also want to talk to you about what's coming up tomorrow. I believe I've got some insight into what's happening in the future. And I know Gerald's got some incredible stuff to share on that event on the 26th, but I've got some incredible things to share with you at these rallies. You've got to get to them. And of course, this Sunday morning on Reborn, I'm going to be speaking on the Great Deception. One of the signs that Christ said, actually the number one sign was deception. And people are being deceived. I'm telling you. James McPherson, your final comments, please. I'm going to let you loose on whatever subject you feel, whether it's the Greta, the Greens, the climate change, the trans, the Dan. What's on your heart? Because I know I know you're a thinking man. Where are we headed with all this, mate?
Well, I'll tell you something I found out today that I thought was really weird. In Queensland, when your child moves from kindergarten into primary school, you fill out what's called a transition form, and it just supplies information for the school that your child is moving into, so they can help the child transition smoothly from kinder into primary school. Well, in this government form, they actually ask for your child's preferred pronoun. We're talking about 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and the government are asking mums and dads, what pronoun would your child like to be addressed as, with an expectation implicit that we may well have 4 or 5-year-olds who are identifying as a gender different to their biological gender. That to me is just unbelievable. I just found this today. A friend sent it to me, and it just goes to show this stuff is seeping into culture at every level, and if we don't keep calling it out every time we see it, and it gets wearisome, to be honest. You just get sick of dealing with this stuff, but that's how the left infiltrate, that they just wear you down by continuing over and over again until eventually you just get bored of it and you just give in. But we must not give in, because our children's lives are too important for this rubbish. And so I just would encourage all of your viewers, Pat, to just keep calling out the stuff that they see, whether it's on climate or, imagined racism or the transgendered stuff. You've just got to keep speaking truth and pointing to reality. Otherwise, our children face a very bleak future.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Joel. And thank you, Senator Alex Antic. It's always great having you guys on. I just want to share a final thought with everyone. James encapsulated what we really need to do. We cannot be silent. One day a word came to Queen Esther and said, if you remain silent at this time, deliverance will come from another place, but you and your family are going to perish. We cannot be silent. Silence is a friend of oppression. Silence is basic approval. Silence empowers despots and evil. And I said it the other week. Dietrich Bonhoeffer said, not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. And God will not hold us guiltless. Whether you believe in God or not, it is irrelevant to me. But we need to be people that speak and are awake. And what's happening is people are becoming more and more awake. And whether you're a person of faith or whether you're not, we've got to share, and as James said, call it out with reason, with sense, with great argument, and also with accuracy, because there's a lot of nonsense out there, and we can't win this war of the mind. And this is an attack on the mind. It's an attack on thinking. It's an attack on our future. How? By getting into our heads. This is how the future is created. They want to get to the children. They want to get to the school systems. They want to get to the 4 and 5-year-olds. We need to put a hedge of protection, and that requires a voice. You are the voice. You are the voice. We are the people. We need to vote. We need to be informed. We need to be equipped. We need to be educated. We can't stick our brain in a pickle jar and say, reserved until I'm dead or something. I don't know. You can't do that. And if you're a believer, you can't stick your brain in a pickle jar and say, reserved until the rapture or until Jesus comes. You can't do that either. We need to be thinking, speaking, and acting with accuracy, and not only with accuracy, but with truth. With truth. You see, truth wins. Lies always get exposed. I want to thank you for watching today. I want to thank you all, the team. Thank you again to Joel, Senator Alex Antic, and James McPherson. Follow them on all their platforms, guys. These are great, great people doing a great job. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Awesome. Cheers.